like you could tell there's like a certain youthful, like, just there's balls in this record, dude. Like, I hadn't listened to this in so long, dude. I'm so glad I just saw this and was like, oh, we should cover that record. Okay, in the summer of the year 2000, we got A Global Threat, Until We Die. Pardon me. 14 songs, just under 28 minutes in length. It's their second record. Boy, this one is blistering fast, dude. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like you could tell there's like a certain youthful, like, just there's balls in this record, dude. Like, I hadn't listened to this in so long, dude. I'm so glad I just saw this and was like, oh, we should cover that record, because I did it because I thought this was kind of outside of our we kind of go with more of the orgcore type stuff. We like a lot of the rock and roll based punk stuff, but I love street punk, man. I always have. And so I just thought that you might know a little more about this than maybe Rob might, but I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if either of y'all have a lot of knowledge or don't have a lot of knowledge, but I thought it'd be a little more up your alley than
definitely.
his.
A Global Threat was definitely one of those bands that, in the early 2000s, I saw their album around a lot, and like the kids and the people that like them, like, really fucking like them. But I think it's safe to say they had a bit of a cult following, in a way. I wasn't too akin to that street punk sound necessarily, although just by like virtue of being into punk rock, like, I was around it and I heard it. Like, for instance, I never got into like Leftover Crack too much, or Choking Victim, or Grimple even, which is a band I think that probably really influenced A Global Threat. I hear a bunch of Grimple in there. I don't know if you do or not, but
it's funny that we're talking about this at all, because first and foremost, a lot of the people that were too cool for the unseen when they started getting big, they liked A Global Threat, and they said that they're the better alternative, which in my personal opinion, they're very similar. Now, I don't know if I have one that I pick as a favorite. I just enjoy both groups pretty much the same. But today, it was funny. A guy in the comments was like, man, you don't know nothing about punk rock. And he was like, you should just call this the Epitaph and Fat Records Review.
The Epitaph,
something 90s. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, that's interesting, because today I'm going to cover A Global Threat and I'm interviewing the dude from Grimple, like, on the day that you said. And I was like, okay, like, cool, man. Like, I don't know how, okay. But I was just saying, this was just funny to me because it just happened to be on a day where I'm doing something that's probably much more that guy's speed. So I hope he didn't just bail on the channel, and I hope he's sticking around to kind of see what we're all about. Because people that say stuff like that clearly haven't watched more than whatever video they're upset by. I cover quite a bit of stuff on this channel, but yeah, I think I heard some Grimple in there, more like later Grimple, and I talked to Greg about that, and that was an interesting conversation. I'll just leave that up for. I'm going to post it soon, so just stay tuned. But I mean, here's the thing: these dudes had to be young, man. They had to be very, very young. In the CD liner notes, oh my goodness, dude. So one thing is that when I open this up, I can't even show it to you on screen because it wouldn't make sense. The liner notes, they're typed so small that I literally cannot read them. And I'm like, man, I wanted to read all the lyrics, so I had to pull it up on Genius to find the lyrics.
Yeah, I was reading the lyrics too. Yeah,
because like, here's the thing, man. A lot of people are going to hear you and I argue about Spotify and stuff and think that we're not trying to come to some kind of like better conclusion, when in reality, at least that's my goal. And so I take to heart a lot what we talked about. So I enjoyed sitting down with the lyrics. That's why I got the CD out, because I thought I'd be able to read it. I guess I'm just that old now, but I pulled the lyrics up and I read them with the songs, and man, it kind of sent me back 25 years, man. Like in the blink of an eye, I was back in 2000 thinking like, man, I'm pissed off, dude, and all this crap's happening.
Definitely. It's funny you mentioned that. Like, not to interrupt you if you were still
no, that's fine.
If you think about when that album came out and the kind of music that it was, and how angry it was and like urgent that shit was, and what the subject matter is they're talking about, they're they're one of those punk bands that were giving you a reason to be angry about something, you know? It was like they had an ethos, you know, and
Right.
from what it looked like, they're pretty anarcho, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, I think that like looking at what's happening now in the world and today and shit, like some of that stuff is really relevant, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
and I think that, you know, like for a lot of younger people, maybe back in like 98, 99, 2000, when all that shit came out, if you're a young punk and you're looking for identity in yourself and where you belong in the world and, you know, what you want to do with yourself, you know, and your purpose, that kind of helped to shape a lot of worldviews, you know? So yeah, I think bands like that were important, you know, definitely. Even though maybe
100%.
like musically that might not have been every punk's cup of tea, I think that like what they were saying was kind of undeniably
Huh.
resonated with everybody across the board, you know.
Very good
Um,
way to put that.
I think so.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's a very eloquent way to say all that because I agree. I will say there's a few things like I can't help myself. I have to view this through like a 43-year-old's, lens. And there's a lot of stuff in here. For anybody that's wondering, I'm not I like this band a lot, but I'm from Texas and I don't think I ever saw them play live, so I don't know a ton about this band. So if I say something wrong, it's not on purpose. I'm not stupid. I'm not. I just didn't know. So if you have some information about this band, please let me know, man. First off, I want to know. You think they're still like this anarchic? Like I think they're that uh almost nihilistic, dude. There's like they didn't have a lot that they were like believing in. It didn't feel like they had a lot of faith in anything. Is my point. Not believing in, but like they didn't feel like they had a lot of faith in anything at all. Where, as I think that's a very individual topic. Everybody's going to feel a little bit different on that kind of thing. Whereas I'm a little more optimistic, but it depends on where you come from, what you've been through.
Yeah,
Everybody's a little different. We all have the same ideals of what we want to accomplish in this world and what we want it to be like, but we also probably all have a slightly different idea of what it actually is. And that's
yeah,
only because of your surroundings, your personal experiences. And it's tough to tell somebody they're wrong when you don't actually know. And that goes for
right.
you and I and people we don't know. But I am wondering if they still feel the same way as my point
Yeah. I
after
mean,
all these years.
it's funny. I went to their Wikipedia page, and I think there was a reunion maybe a couple of years ago. So, I
That's
mean, these
awesome.
guys are probably pushing late 40s, mid to late 40s now, right? I mean, I would imagine they're
I would think
around
so.
our age, if not a little bit older. So, and they
Yeah,
got
a little
together.
older.
I think, you know, I'm going to go on a limb and say their worldviews are probably pretty similar, but, you know, who knows? You know, people change. Like, I think with idealism, there's always a little bit of naivete, also, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
listen to
yeah.
like
Youthful ignorance.
yeah, I mean, but you
Yeah.
know, it's like you come full circle to stuff too. You know, like it's like I found myself listening to albums when I was 16. One good example is God, that band Broadway's. The Broadway's record
So good.
was
So
hugely,
good.
you know, impactful on me on a very emotional level when I was like 16. That record, like, cause I mean, I'd get them like on my body tattooed somewhere if I could. I'd probably get the Broadway's logo on me somewhere. I thought you were gonna show me a Broadway's tattoo,
Oh,
but
I wish I had one.
you know, that band was really important to me because if you listen to the lyrics on the album, much like A Global Threat, they're very directed at like the inequities of society, kind of like what it's like to wake up and not know what the fuck is going on, but wanting things to be another way and different and wanting things to change and just drawing attention to like stuff that, you know, people on the street that are homeless, that like a lot of punk rock bands weren't really talking about that way, you know, but from a very empathetic kind of perspective, you know. And at the time, I'm like, wow, these lyrics. And then there was a point in my life, I'm like, man, these guys are just a bunch of like fucking naive hippie punk dudes, right?
Uh,
And then, you know, I lived a little bit more life, and I came back around again. And then, you know, in the wake of 2025 and Trump going into office and fucking like the rise of fascism in this country and just kind of all the bananas stuff that's happening in the world that's just is super scary, I found myself coming back around to it again, and the lyrics really hitting home for me, you know. So I think albums like this and maybe A Global Threat like have a way of finding their way back around again, you know, for that
Well,
reason.
unfortunately, the world doesn't change too often, not for the better. And so when you make a song that's relevant and important, it kind of stays that way. At least in my experiences, what I've seen, and I mean, I can look at songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and
Yeah.
they're all talking about the same exact stuff. Why is that? It's because we're a bunch of fucking idiots and nobody knows how to just like, well, people don't know and understand it. Like, man, look, first and foremost, you have to accept that everything takes a lot of work, right? Like whatever it is I want to do. If I want to start a small business, takes a lot of work. If I want to change something in government, takes a lot of work. People will like to run their mouths about that, but they don't want to go out there and do the work. Also, like unfortunately, there's some things that we can't change. Like money exists. I hate that money exists. I wish we didn't have to work on like dollars and that kind of shit. I don't know how a bartering system would work these days, but I find myself trading with people a lot in my
Yeah.
personal daily life, and it's so gratifying. I go, hey man, I'll do
Absolutely.
this for you if you'll help me with something, and it's so good. And I don't want to get into some kind of weird like communist shit that I'm talking about actually like trading a service for a service. Maybe money exists, but like, well, because I don't know that like the way most people think of communism, I don't think that is realistic because people start getting lazy and some people are working harder than others and everybody thinks that they. So it's like, well, that gets complicated. So okay, well, what about I do something for you, you do something for me? That really seems one for one. I like that.
In a very, yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I mean, and to your point, I think the best thing we can do is to live according to our principles in our communities, you know, and just around the people that we love and care about, and just, you know, try to connect with what we value and how we want to live our lives as honestly as possible. Yeah, money's going to be there, you know, but you know, anyways, we're getting way off topic, but
well, no, I mean, are we though? Because I mean, the songs talk about all this stuff, and
yeah, I mean, you know,
my point kind of was, I was wondering, do they still feel the way that they felt when they wrote this album?
I'd be
I
curious.
would imagine that they probably changed at least a reasonable amount because as you get older, like everybody I've ever met in my life that was a certain way when they were 20, when they were 40,
Sure.
they had like similar like their what's the word I'm looking for here? Like their internal beliefs and like their system of measurement of good and wrong was still pretty much the
Values,
same.
you know, like their
Their
values.
values were the same, but like what they were willing to understand and accept was very different. And also their priorities were a lot different. So like their values were the same, but their priorities have changed. You have a child, you're not willing to go to prison anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so I'm wondering like how these guys, my point is I'd really just like to talk to them at some point. I really think that'd be kind of cool because Mark Unseen was in this band. He's a guy I'd like to talk to anyways.
I'm pretty sure you can get one of these guys on the channel, man.
That would be so awesome, dude. I would love to talk to this band because
I don't think these guys are the type of people to say no to you about that. And then you can ask them yourself.
Yeah. Right. And well, if you look at the lyrics of these songs, man, I wrote down so much stuff on this, dude. Like I have a whole page of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to get into every single bit of it. I might just do like a track by track breakdown at the end of this. At the end of our talk, I'll just record a little track by track breakdown and tack it on the end of it. But
there were 2 tracks for me. Sorry to cut you off.
No, by all means, dude. What songs? I'm
musically
very interested.
The ones that I like the stuff that was more that was slower than the faster stuff, the more poppy stuff. The songs that I liked were. Let me just pull up the track list too.
Yeah, I did get together the top 3, so I'll probably bring that up here in a minute too.
I liked Where's the Money Gone? Where the Money's Gone. Sorry. I liked that song was in particular a very. It's the closest thing you're gonna get to an Oi song on this record, right? I mean, it's kind of got like the
sort of
there, but no, it is
lyrically it wasn't.
No, not lyrically, but there's a line in there about like. Fuck your like working or class like ethics. I mean, there's something about like glorifying working class like ethics, right?
Right.
And I think that was a kind of like I don't know, tongue in cheek commentary on like how a lot of like street punk and oi bands at the time were like, oh, you know, blue collar, fucking like just pull yourself.
They still are because there's a certain amount of pride that you should get from putting in a hard day's work and being able to provide for your family. Now, does that mean you shouldn't like, you know, lick the boot of the people that are above you
I
on
think
the totem pole.
I think they were talking in like on like a more like systemic level, on like a global, larger level, not like every day.
Probably.
I think that's. I mean, most of their lyrics seem to be more about like the larger problems of society,
Right.
like religion, like police, like institutions, like jobs, corporations. Like these are some of the common themes in these songs. You know.
Oh, dude. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, no, and that's it. In the other song, there was two, and then
what was the other one?
I'm gonna tell you right now. I think it was fucking racist maggots.
Okay, I'm not at all surprised that you like that one. I literally thought, okay, so that song hits home with me because it's got some content based in Texas. So like they're talking about a murder that happened in Jasper,
Yeah.
Texas. So it hits home for me. I remember being young when that happened and being so ashamed, and I cried, dude. Like I was like, I grew up in a religious household, so I looked at it from two different kind of standpoints. One from being like a young punk rock kid that was still trying to find himself, but one from like a person that had morals and had just like you said, I had values,
Right.
character, and I thought like, who treats people like this? So that song, when I read the lyrics, I had to pause it and I was like, oh man, that one's heavy. I was like, oh god,
That's hard to,
let me take a deep breath on this one, man. It was.
Well, to be fair, I didn't know what the words are until after I heard the song. I like the music,
Okay. Nice.
you know. So I like the chords and kind of the way he was.
Oh, dude.
It's like
whatever the reason is that you like it is the reason you like it.
And then it's like hard to hear what he's saying on the record because
no, it really is
talking really fast and kind of like screeching and screaming and shit. So you got to read the liner notes to know what he's even fucking saying. But no, those are the two that probably stuck out to me the most. That's
awesome. Those are good songs. The whole record is honestly very, very good in my opinion. I do say that there is a little bit I'd like to hear. I would like them to just slow it down just a beat so that I can hear the words a little better. Mm-hmm. But I understand back then I probably wouldn't have agreed with that. So like when it came out, I was probably just all in on this.
Totally.
But I will say something about the lyrics. There's a little charm in these lyrics because while they're important and they're still relevant, it is incredibly obvious that a young person wrote them.
Yeah.
Because there's like rhyme schemes that like you can tell that he just wanted it to rhyme, and it's like, but I've been in bands when I was young too, so I get it. I just think it's interesting, and I think it's charming. I'm not talking crap even a little bit. I think it's awesome, but
I mean, just imagine like take yourself back to being 17 and 18 years old and just having a head full of fucking thoughts and a bunch of fire in your heart, and just like. You want to just let it out, and these kids, I can just imagine them in fucking like history class, like writing these lyrics or something,
Oh, dude,
I can't see these guys being more than 17 or 18, and also they're like 4 white kids from like Maine, New England. So let's couple that with like their locale, like they're not from an urban area, I think they moved to Boston. Like it said in the Wikipedia.
I think they're from that part of the country, and then they moved to a more of a city.
New England. Well, it's all in the same, like region, right? So all that shit's up there. New England and Maine and Massachusetts aren't that far apart, but it's like it's kind of like how like the queers are from like Vermont. These guys are from like virtually the middle of fucking nowhere. And they probably like I'm curious about like what influenced them. I mean, like what got them going? Because this is an angry record. You know what I mean? It's got a lot of urgency. It's got a lot of fucking heart, and that's what adolescence is about. And I think kind of where that energy was coming from too. So,
oh no, dude, like. First time in a long time we've just outright agreed on a bunch of stuff. Like, and I think it's refreshing and kind of nice.
We're like long overdue to argue about something, man.
I know, right?
I think we got it all out last time. Maybe
we might argue on Alkaline Trios. Who knows? But
so Spotify too, probably once at some point. We'll see.
Here's the thing, man. No matter where you're from, the world is still the world, right? And honestly, if you're out on the sticks, dude, it probably looks even more fucked up. Because I can tell you, man. When I lived like in Houston, there was problems, but it was a very culturally diverse city, man. There was people of all kinds, shapes, sizes, and sexualities everywhere, and I loved it. I just had black people around me, Mexican people around me, Indian, Asian, gay, straight, transgender. It was amazing, man. I had people of all kinds, so it was just like this melting pot of like culture and lifestyle and just personality, right?
Yeah.
I move out here to Magnolia. It's pretty, it's quiet, but dude, it's wild scary because like I see the most insane like MAGA. It
Yeah.
scares the shit out of me, man, because I'm like, man, I don't want to go walking down the street by myself at night because I clearly don't represent that part of the society. So they might see me and start talking shit, and I'm not one to shut my mouth, so I might get
But you're
kicked in
white,
the head
so
or
you got that going for you. They're not gonna really get in your face too much, bro.
yeah, man. Being white is just the bee's knees, bro.
I mean, I meant in that particular location.
Oh, well, yeah, until they get up close up to see my face tattoos, and they're like, "This piece of shit," and I'm just like, "I'm sorry, man. You're right." I fucking
Trump press.
bro, dude, straight up, man. I'll be like, "Give me that hat," and then I'll get jumped. But no, man, I just think that this record is fantastic. It was a really nice treat to go back and listen to it again in its entirety. I really, really, really adored the whole thing, and I know it may sound corny, but like, I appreciate this. Oh, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
lyrics like this, man, from a kid that's from Houston. I don't have any punk bands around me very much. Maybe one or two that are local, but they're not talking like this. Maybe one of them.
Yeah.
Most of the bands were more on the poppy side, right? Shout out
Yeah.
30 Foot Fall. They're great musicians. I love those bands, but they weren't doing this kind of music. And I remember, I'm not going to act like I got in this band back then because I didn't. I didn't hear about these guys till probably 02, 03, right? Like it was after this album. It was when I was about 20 years old, maybe. So 2002. But before that, I remember I'm not a big fan of Crass or Rudimentary Peni. Like I like Rudimentary Peni, okay, but I'm not a big Crass fan. But when I was a kid, I didn't know anything else to get except Crass, Dead Kennedys, and blah blah blah. Well, they also spoke like this, and I remember my mom sitting me down, and she was like, she would used to take my albums from me and like destroy them, dude. And like, I remember one time she sits me down and she's like, okay, you said that there weren't a lot of curse words in this music, and she's like, and it wasn't this album necessarily, but like just whatever it was, right? And she's like, okay, I don't see a lot of cursing. She's like, but the topics that they're talking about, she's like, it worries me. And I was like, well, what worries you about it? And she's like, I don't really know how to explain it. And I never understood that until I was listening to this. You need to stop.
Yeah, hit pause for just a second. I gotta turn the
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stop you. All right, let's keep it moving. You were saying?
Well, I never understood what she was talking about until last night. Like it clicked last night. All these years later, I actually asked her today, hey, what was it about those punk lyrics that you used to read that you just couldn't stand? And you didn't really take them all from me, but you took some of them. And it was exactly what I thought, is that she is not this kind of person. She doesn't think like this. Now, she's not like I wouldn't call my mom a sheep. Like she doesn't just go by the way of the world, actually quite the opposite. But she's also not like a super anti-authoritarian at all. Like she's not like, fuck the government. They're all lying to us. Like she thinks that some of them are lying to us, but I don't know. I think this shit just scared her. It's because she saw this opening my eyes. She saw this being like how I'm going to learn. This is going to help. I mean, this is going to help form my opinion on a lot of stuff. If you hear, look, dude, here's the problem with just kind of people is we don't want to actually learn most of the time, especially when we're young. We get an idea of something and we want to go find things that reinforce that idea. Everybody does it. It's not necessarily on purpose. It's just kind of how we behave as humans, right? Well, when you hear this, I think she was just afraid that I wasn't going to want to just double check. Well, it turns out that when you double check, they're absolutely correct. But I understood. It was weird, man. It was interesting to understand, because y'all got kids now. So I look at it now. I don't care if they listen to this, but I had the same problems with stuff like Juice WRLD and Lil Peep. I don't want my kids listening to that because they're going to think that this stuff's okay that they're talking about, and they're talking about something that's incredibly dangerous. So I don't really tell them what they can and can't listen to, but I like to at least monitor it so I can know what's going on. I mean, to a certain degree, I don't let them listen to stuff. I'm their father, but
out to lunch, my parents were like, my mom didn't even listen to the lyrics. She just heard loud music and was like, what the fuck? Like, turn that shit down.
Dude, my mom would take.
Her mom was like paying attention. She was like listening to this fucking
dude.
Thing too.
You know what was cool? I will give my mom a little bit of credit. She did not take Rancid albums. She read the lyrics and she was like, "Well, I really can't argue with you here." And she gave them back to me. I couldn't believe it, dude.
And
I couldn't believe
it. She'd be like, "What the fuck are you listening to? Let me get that real quick."
Dude, even today, I can't take a rated R movie into my mom's house, bro. She doesn't play that game, dude.
That's wild.
I know. Here, before we move on to the
going.
next record, I will tell you the 3 songs that I really liked and why. Okay, so it's funny because I think I like the bookend songs quite a bit. The opener and the closer. The opener being "Work or War." It's a really good song to open an album like this. It just talks about being young.
Right.
It's exactly about the stuff we used to feel as 17, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. You know, drinking 40s, bumming around, not having any money to do anything. So people thought we were up to no good when all we were doing was just trying to entertain ourselves. Look, just because we look a certain way, like just like that Large Hutchinson song says, dude, just because I look like this doesn't make me a communist. Just because you're going forward doesn't mean I'm going backwards. Like let me just be me, please. Like I'm not bothering nobody. And it's interesting, man. When you hear these lyrics, it just transports me right back to being that age. And quick story, man. I was in Walmart one time and I was sitting down on the floor reading a magazine and I was all decked out, man. I had on like a battle vest and a hoodie and patched up jeans and probably suspenders hanging down. I look like a just street punk, drunk punk kid, spiky hair and shit. I was waiting for my girlfriend to get out of school. I had dropped out. I was probably like 17, 18 years old. And this lady walks up and I'm reading a magazine, you know, on the floor. And she's just like, "Hey, are you doing okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" I'm like, "Yeah, am I in your way?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, well, let me know if I need to move." I wasn't trying to bother nobody. And she's like, "Here." She gives me some money. And then I was like, that was weird. And then she's like, "You know what? I'll be right back." And she goes and she pays for her stuff and she comes back and she gives me a wad of cash. I don't remember how much it was. It was probably 25, 30 bucks. And she's like, "Here, get yourself something to eat. Are you going to be okay tonight?" And I literally was like, "Ma'am, I'm not homeless." And she's like, "Okay, sweetheart." And she's like, tap me on the shoulder, bro. It was so funny. But I remember like that's the kind of reaction I would get just like being alive. It was I know you weren't into the Mohawk shit, but like I definitely was. And I looked like a bum, I guess, but it was pretty funny, man.
Yeah. I mean, it just wasn't my fashion.
No, dude, that was the only way I could be me, man. I didn't have the ability to be myself otherwise, so I had to like cut my hair in a certain way and like write on my clothes.
Or no?
No, I never really did that stuff. I've always liked the same thing I like now, man. Cargo pants with patches on them and some blue jeans or black jeans.
Nice.
But like I didn't have an identity until I was, my mom wouldn't let me have one, dude. At one point, my mom for 6 weeks in school, like how report cards come every 6 weeks. So for a whole section of school, she made me wear brown dress pants, a white short sleeve button down shirt, and black dress shoes to school every day. I looked like a fucking computer geek or something, man. It was bad, bro. I used to get relentlessly bullied, dude. And so I wasn't allowed to have like a personality. I wasn't allowed to be myself. I had really bad ADHD back then, and she just didn't know what to do. And part of it's because it was just her. My dad was gone. So like, what was she gonna do? I was a pain in her ass. So it's not all my mom. It's some of this stuff is self-inflicted, man. But I'll move on. The next 2 songs, Until We Die, the title track on the album. It might be the best song on the record. So I think people need to go listen to that. I put a bunch of these on the Spotify playlist, and then I'm going to probably start building up like a YouTube playlist of some kind to just give people other options to listen to the stuff that I'm, the little collections of music that I'm put together. But Young and Dead, and right in the middle is a sleeper. That song is crazy good, man. It's got a really good bass line that it opens up with. And it's a look in the mirror, song. It criticizes punk rock, and I think that's very valuable and really a good thing to do is to question your own self and to put yourself in check. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And this album is fucking awesome, dude. I had a blast listening to it.
I enjoyed it. It's short. It's sweet.
Man,
it's not the kind of record that I seek nowadays in my age, but I think it scratches an itch,
Dude, how weird is that? It's not one that I would seek now either, but when I played it, because I still own it. When I played it, I couldn't believe. I was like, dude, no, fuck this. And I was like, oh, I hate having to admit this. I was like, fucking Nitty's got a point. I gotta spend some time with this record, bro. So I'm taking it to work this weekend. I'm gonna jam the fuck out of this record at the store.
Well, also,
I mean, I already, conceded that you're right about that. We need to have a more personal relationship with our music if that's what we want to do.
I mean, that's just my way of looking at
I don't
things.
think everybody has to do that if they don't want to, but I definitely want to, is my point.
So with this album, by the way, it's the last thing I'll say about it. Like, you were like, yeah, it's short. Listen, because I wasn't too familiar with it. I don't think I even really heard this album. So
awesome.
When I took my dog for a walk today after work, I was like, yeah, that was a good time to listen to it. I put it on. I got through 2 tracks. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this right now. Like, I don't know if I can listen to this album. But then, you know what? I'm like, fuck it. Like, let it go. And then halfway through the record, I kind of got into it. I just like surrendered to what it was. But the songs all kind of like bleed into each other. It's like,
dude, the flow is really, really solid. They
like,
put this together really well.
Yeah. It's 28 minutes. Perfect amount.
It's like a little time capsule, man. And it's like it's a time capsule, but it's also like a one cohesive piece of art. Like, this is not the kind of record that, in all honesty, you should be taking 3 or 4 songs off of. You should just throw it on and listen to it. It's not long. Just throw it on, listen to it in its entirety. Dude, anybody out there that's a Global Threat fan, man, what do you feel about this album? This is probably my favorite one of theirs. I think they have at least 2 more. I have those as well, but this is probably my favorite one. I like the production on it. It's a little high pitched and tinny, but I kind of like it.
90s or whatever.
Whatever. Dude, yeah, same difference.
Might as well